I can't tell you how many times I've received a DM, a message, a comment of someone saying, my feet hurt so bad, what can I do? Well, here are a couple things you can do to get your feet feeling better and maybe address that issue before it gets up into the hip. For starters, I want to give you this analogy. I've worked with some athletes in the past and we've talked about them always wearing cleats, and those feet are constantly restricted, boxed in those shoes. And I want you to think about your fist as the same way. Think about if I make this fist as tight as I can, you start to feel that tension work up into the forearm, up into the upper arm, maybe even up into the shoulder if you're really squeezing hard enough. Now think about your feet. Think about your feet in those sensory deprivation chambers, constantly locking those feet down, disconnecting us from the external environment that we walk around in. I'm not telling you to be all barefoot all the time. I do like to get people's feet when it comes to a training session open sometimes, but maybe it's just you walking around your house more bare feet. Maybe it's when you don't have to put shoes on, you don't. You just kind of walk around bare feet and let your feet kind of splay and move. But for starters, let's get those toes moving. So I just want you to take your fingers and I want you to put them between your toes. From this position here, you're just gonna listen to me talk for a couple seconds. I just want you to hold this position. Think about the concept of shoes, that constant restriction. Those 10,000 steps maybe you're tracking on your Apple Watch a day. And our feet are constantly just moving, and the shoe is doing the moving sometimes because that's how we make shoes now. This is not a normal toe position, obviously. Start to slide your fingers down your toes a little bit if you can. This might be a little painful. From here, now I want you to think about making circles. So I'm gonna make kind of some big circles as much as we can. I like to take this hand and lock it down on my foot so I'm not moving my foot too much. I'm truly just trying to move my toes. I got some snap, crackle, and pop going on my end. Go reverse direction, just kind of moving around in those toes. It might be a little bit painful just because when's the last time you've had something stuffed between your third and fourth toe? I know often I don't. So we're just kind of moving around, feeling those toes. And then kind of stop. From that alone, if you have both feet barefoot and I put my feet flat on the ground, rock forward. If I just push my knees past my toes, I instantly feel less tension on this left foot now. And I want you to purposely do everything on one foot before you go to the other so that you can check that yourself. From there, we're gonna go with a tennis ball. I really love tennis balls because they give us a little bit of feedback. I know some people like to use those wooden dowel balls, maybe a golf ball, whatever it is, but I sometimes think that's too hard. And when I'm trying to get in tissue and I'm trying to relax, I look at it from the concept of scaring tissue away. If I use too hard of an implement or too small, that's pretty evasive of getting in that tissue. And I'm like, you see people like wincing as they go down. I like to look at relaxation and pain as a one-way street. If I got pain, I'm not relaxing into it. So I love tennis balls for that effect. So next we're gonna take a tennis ball. I'm gonna elaborate a little bit why more on a tennis ball in a little bit, but for starters, I want you to put this underneath the toes. So from here, I'm using a kettlebell here to obviously keep it from moving across the floor, but the big thing I want you to think about, whether it's corner of a wall, whatever it is having the ability to push your knee past your toe. But more importantly, as I push the knee past the toe, is making sure that I'm not collapsing in the arch as I do so. Maintaining this arch, and I'm just kind of pushing past, and I like that tennis ball because it gives me a little bit of feedback. So maybe versus a baseball where it's very hard, I push forward, my toe just hits like a stopping point. So this tennis ball allows me to kind of push into it. So now as I push in, I can also take my toes and push down into the ball. I might feel this front side of this tissue on this ankle light up a little bit. That's good stuff. Sometimes this is an often overlooked part of our training. Pushing past the toe, keeping that, maintaining that arch of the bottom of the foot, and then you can work for the other toes. So I just did the big toe. We'll try the other toes. And I'm just thinking pushing across. Nothing crazy, just kind of pushing forward, getting this bend in the toe. After we've worked the toes, after we've pushed the knee past the toe with this underneath the toes, I want you to take this ball, I want you to put it underneath the bottom of the foot. Earlier I mentioned the importance of a tennis ball. I want you to take this tennis ball and I just want you to push down and I want you to hold it. I like the tennis ball because we get feedback and because it's not too evasive. I think far too often than not, especially when it comes to the feet, we go too hard and we go too small. I like to look at relaxing and pain as a one-way street. If I'm wincing as I push down or you're having your athletes do it, they're obviously not relaxing around tissue. And if I'm trying to relieve tension, I should probably associate a good relationship with that of easing into tissue, not just scaring it away. So now that I've held this spot, I'm going to think about pulling my toes up, and I'm going to think about pulling my toes down. Then I'm going to go to a new spot, slightly off to the side, pull my toes up, pull my toes down. We don't need to get crazy here. Just kind of move around underneath that trampoline underneath the bottom of the foot. So if I got heel, big, little, I'm just going to work around this trampoline underneath the bottom of the foot with this tennis ball, get to a new spot, push in, toes down, toes up. I really love doing this from a seated position. Far too often than not, I see people do this and they're always standing. When you're standing, you really can't control how much weight you're putting into the ball, so you're more than likely leaning a majority of your body weight onto the ball, and sometimes I think that can be too much. I like this kneeling position because I can kind of lean my body weight and dictate how much tension I'm putting in. Once again, I'm not trying to wreck the bottom of my feet. I'm just trying to give a different input to maybe, hopefully, associate some sort of relaxation. Maybe it's just enough different input for my brain to be like, oh, that's interesting, that's different. Brain likes different. After we've done this, we're just going to slowly roll. Remember, when it comes to underneath the bottom of the foot, we're not trying to start a fire. You see people go like this. I don't want you to think start a fire. I want you to think ease into tissue. So after we've eased into a couple spots, I'm just kind of easing nice and slow. Maybe start to feel that tissue underneath the bottom of your foot like break up, almost feel like crackly, like you're breaking up some sort of stiff brown box that you're just folding up and it's all crispy and we're just trying to move around on it. Just nice and easy. After you've done those three things on one foot only, I want you to kind of lean forward again and then feel, yeah, I don't feel any tension underneath the left side of my foot at all. Stand up and do a lunge pattern. Like I can easily sink into these toes. Versus my right leg, I feel the tension in my big toe. When it comes to those lunge patterns, when it comes to your normal gait of walking, the feet can be a gatekeeper for what's going on up north. Make sure we don't overlook the feet and take the time, whether it's one, 2, 3 times a week, maybe 5 minutes while you're warming up, emphasize what's going on down there.